Hey there, welcome to Board Game Hot Takes, the podcast where we give our immediate reactions to the hottest board games just minutes after playing them. My name's Tim.
And this is Chris.
This is Adam.
And today, instead of giving our hot take review on the game we just finished playing, we're going to be covering our top 10 games of all time. This is our third annual top 10 games of all time list. And over the last 4 weeks, we've been covering our top 40 games. So we're at the cream of the crop, the top of the list, the top of the hill, king of the hill this evening. And you get to hear what the best games are according to us right now. Before we jump into this, usually we do some poll results on here, and we're going to skip that tonight. We're going to jump right into the main event, the main topic. And I have a question for you guys. How many games do you think we're going to overlap with? If you had to guess.
Okay, this is it. There's going to be 2 crossovers. It's on all 3. And then I'm going to have 2 additional with Chris and 2 additional with you, Tim. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So you're saying 5?
I think 2 across all 3 of us.
Yeah, and then 2 on
and then 2 with each and 2 additional with the individuals.
Got it.
If you want me to do a Venn diagram, I can do a Venn diagram here. 3-circle Venn diagram.
That seems like a bigger crossover than last year. I feel like we were like wondering if there's going to be like 2 or 3 crossovers last year. So are we converging? Are we starting to like get to know each other's tastes a little bit? Maybe even
a little group think here.
Sink in a little bit.
God forbid.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of with Adam on this one. I don't have a spreadsheet, and honestly, coming up with a real answer to this question would require that I actually remember what we all said on previous episodes, which I only do a little bit. I'm pretty sure I know what the game is that Adam was talking about that all 3 of us are going to converge on, and I'm confident about that one. And I can think of at least, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 others here at least that I know at least one of you guys is going to also choose. So I'm thinking there might be 6, 7, 8 crossovers between at least 2 of us. So I think we're going to have quite a bit of crossover on this list.
Yeah, I think so too this year. So apologize to the listeners who are here for a big variety, because I think that there's 7 games Chris and I are going to match with, and 2 that me and Adam are going to match with.
You only think 2 between us, Tim?
Or no, it's 3. 3. There's going to be 3 between us.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be more, but you actually hit 1 on your list last week. Yeah, so there was one you talked about last week that I think that I would have thought we'd cross over with. But yeah, I think it's 7 for me and Chris and 2 for me and Adam.
Jeez.
We'll see how it goes.
Hey, but here's the thing, Tim. So for people that are longtime listeners, I'm sorry, you're going to hear us talk probably about a bunch of games that we've talked about a lot in the past. But if you're a new listener and you hear that all 3 of us are going behind, 1 game or 2 games or 3 games, and we all like them, probably a pretty good sense that that's a good game regardless of your taste, because we have relatively diverse taste here generally.
We do.
Yeah.
And so if we're all 3 back in a game, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, I think that's right. So let's just jump right into the games this week, and we'll start with number 10 and work our way backwards. And then at the end, we will do kind of a final thoughts and talk about how this all went for us this week. It's been a wild ride, fun going through our top 40. Let's start with number 10. Number 10 is a little lower for me this year than it has been in the past, but I expect it to shoot back up next year. Number 10 is the Castles of Burgundy, designed by Stefan Feld. And this has always been one of my favorite games since the first day I bought the stupid $20 old school, cheap, crappy production copy of it and read the rule book. And I just fell in love with this game right away. And I played it probably 150 times at this point. I play it in person regularly. I play it on Board Game Arena. And I don't know why it's dropping a little bit. Maybe just, stagnance a little bit. It's not super exciting, but the new hot deluxe production version of this should be shipped to my house within the next couple of weeks. I've been seeing friends already getting it. I see posts all over social media about this, and it looks beautiful, looks amazing. So I think this might just spike it up a little bit for me, make it a little bit more enjoyable to play with some nice production. So Castles of Burgundy is my number 10, and probably the one game on this list that nobody's going to match with me on.
Tim, what's your favorite thing about Castle of Burgundy?
I think it's great. I think it's a great little action selection game that gives you restrictions, gives you little motivations to either try to, fill in a section or get the right tile at the right time, sneak it out before someone else. When you get to play this game at a high level, you are definitely stealing those tiles from somebody else. You're watching for what they need. There's a lot of player interaction that goes on here. It's every turn is fun. Simple. You roll a couple dice. You have to take 2 actions with those 2 numbers that are rolled, but there's some ways to mitigate it. And there's lots of things to do with those numbers. And so fun, quick choices. I love it. I don't know why. I can't explain why, but I just love it.
I always support a good production, but man, what a weird choice for Awakened Realms to put out the deluxe version of this game. It's not what I would expect. It would be like, Guillermo del Toro directing Schindler's List. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it fits. But I'm dying to see how it turns out.
That doesn't work at all, Chris, because Schindler's List was already perfect, and Guillermo del Toro would mess it up. I'm hoping Awakened Realms fixes this stuff.
You know that's not the point.
Okay, my number 10 game, and this is one of the games that I suspect is on all three of our lists. I guess we'll wait and see. This is Blood Rage by Eric Lang, and this game is just absolutely fantastic. It's an area control game. I guess that's part of it. But another part of this game is the draft. You've got a set of cards for round 1, a separate set for round 2, and a separate set for round 3. One of the things I appreciate more and more as I play this is that ability to carry over one of those cards from the first round to the second round and second round to the third round. And maybe you can combo that up with a whole new set of cards in the third round, create some new trickery that nobody suspected. So I like that. There's so much going on here with this it's relatively simple mechanisms. You have a set of characters that are going to go out there on whatever this is, Iceland, with a giant volcano in the middle. Ragnarok's going to happen on some chunk of the island. With just a simple set of things, so much is possible. What ends up happening, though, is I just go for the middle and take the middle and win the middle each time and get lots of points. But if I wanted to do other stuff, I could do that. We all know this one well. You guys introduced this one to me. This is a game that it's going to stick with me forever. I absolutely love this game. Blood Rage. You guys aren't even reacting or saying anything because I know you're going to talk about it here pretty soon. It's bugging me so much. You guys are just like poker face. What are you doing? I love this game. Blood Rage.
You asked me a question a couple of weeks ago, like how many more area control games are on my list. So how many more area control games are in your top 10? You want to spoil it for us a little bit? Give me a little hint.
So besides Blood Rage, there are 1, kind of 2, 3, 4, 5 more. So half of my top 10.
Half your top 10 is area control.
Have some element of area control.
We're going to have so much overlap.
That's awesome. I mean, Blood Rage is basically what I'm hearing is the number 5 best area control game of all time, according to
Yeah, right.
There's so many good ones.
Well, I'm going to start out on a little different note. No area control here. My number 10 game is Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar, designed by Simone Luciani and Daniele Tascini, published by Czech Games Edition. And this is, incidentally, the one game on my list that did not change position at all. It was 10 last year, and it's 10 this year. I'm surprised that any games did that, but this one did. Such a fun game. It's such an interesting combination of mechanisms and a really cool production. And for anybody who's played it, there's these plastic gears on the board where at the end of each round, they turn a notch, and all of the workers are these little tokens that you place on these gears. And as the gears turn, the tokens move along. The workers essentially move along with those gears. And when you pull the worker off of the gear, whatever action happens to be sitting there by where the worker is, that's the action that you take. And so it's this real push and pull between putting wanting to put your workers down to get them in the right spots, but then you have to take a turn to pull them off to get the action. And it's such a hard decision to make, such a fun decision to make. And putting your workers on that gear and turning it is such a satisfying thing. In fact, when I play with my copy of the game, nobody turns that wheel but me. The wheel turning is Chris' work. That's also my favorite part of the game. It's that really cool production piece with the gears on the table that you turn. It makes a really good mechanism really physically fun to interact with. And so that is my favorite part of Tzolk'in the Mayan calendar.
I have a question for you, Chris. When you're playing this game, are you mapping it all out? You're like, okay, this guy in 3 turns is going to be here on the skull, and that's going to be the second skull. I need to get this thing over here, and it's going to work out perfect because I planned it all out 4 or 5 turns ago.
I try. I mean, I do try to do that. I think if you can do that, that's an excellent thing. But, something as simple as I've got 2 guys to put out so I can see where is everything going to be? What's the game state going to be in 2 turns? Being able to do some basic stuff like that, I think makes a huge amount of difference. But boy, it is so hard to do. I so often end up realizing that I had these big plans, but I'm missing one resource that I needed to do it. And then I've screwed everything up. But that is the goal.
Yeah, I think the thing that fixes you just like future planning this whole game is that there's constant blockers. And in a 4-player game, of course, it's different people placing their workers out. And the corn cost goes up based on how far up that gear you're going to place them. So you're kind of oftentimes just saying, what are the 2 spaces I could place without an extra corn cost? And so it does, even though it feels like people would just kind of pre-plan their game, I don't think you can really do that. I think you have to work around with the other workers or the blocking tokens when you're playing a 2 or 3 player game. Really interesting, Chris. So I played this game just recently after making this list, and I don't know how it's so low. I'm looking at my list right now, and it's in at number 70 on my list, and that's ridiculous because I really enjoy this game, but I think I hadn't played it for a little while, and so I taught it to my wife. We went on a little weekend vacation, and I brought a game. And usually, if I kind of get her locked into a vacation mode, and she doesn't have a choice of games, then I'll be like, "Let's play a game. This is what I got. Let's play it." So it was so fun. She loved it actually up until like the 3rd feeding phase, where she didn't quite collect enough corn and then lost a bunch of like that. You know how painful that can be when you haven't planned for it. So
painful.
Yeah. So she kind of soured on it after that, but I had a great time with it. So great pick. This should not have been down at number 70 for me. I'm surprised it didn't make my top 40. Next year, maybe it'll be back on that list again. My number 9 is a game that Chris mentioned last week, and this is Agricola Revised Edition. This I think shot up for me. I feel like it was down in the 20s last year. I'd just kind of been reintroduced to it. This is a game I've been playing for 5 or 6 years, but played it early in my introduction to hobby board gaming. Really enjoyed it, felt tight and heavy, and then I kind of stepped away from it for a while. I think I've moved more into mechanisms-focused types of games or more thematic games. And Agricola has just brought me back full force. I think I got it. Someone pulled me back in on a game of Board Game Arena, and halfway through the first game, I was like, "Oh, I remember why this game is so good." And it's just gotten better for me with every single play. I just love Agricola. My favorite thing about it is the accumulation spaces. It's the best thing you can do in worker placement because it constantly changes the value of each of those spaces you can take. Beyond that, it does what some of Uwe Rosenberg's other games don't do, and that is that it gives a nice variety based on these cards, these occupations and minor improvement cards you can get at the start of the game. You can draft them, and then everybody's kind of starting with a diverse set of things they can build towards and reasons to go down different strategic paths. So unlike Caverna and Feast for Odin has little occupations to some extent, but I don't think they're as impactful. So I think Agricola is still the best of Uwe Rosenberg's worker placement games. It works so thematically well. It's not an interesting theme, but it works so thematically well. And I just love the tight worker placement here. And it's a number 9 right now. I could see it going higher. I think this game's fantastic.
Does the revised edition, does it have like a new set of cards, or what does the revised edition do that the other one doesn't?
That's a good question, Adam, because I think the first time I ever played was with the revised edition, because I think this game was like way back in like 2003 or 2009 or something like that. And the revised edition came out in 2016. And I think they made, like, if I remember right, the original edition was just like discs for your people and like cubes for the sheep and animals. So I think they made some minor production upgrades, but then I think they also corrected some of the balance on the cards and stuff like that. So I don't know 100%, but that's my basic understanding what's different.
The advanced sheep.
All right. Well, up next on my list, number 9, and this is new to my top 10, new to my top 40 this year because I hadn't played until this year. This is Barrage, a game that I suspect will be upcoming on Chris's list. And then it was on Tim's, I don't know if it was in his last chunk or it was somewhere in there. I was pushing for a group to play this one. It was one that was very interested, along with Chris, when we were saying what are we most curious about playing upcoming, and we got this one played. And Tim, reluctantly, we drug him along with us, and he got bashed around and blocked, and just like I had been blocked and bashed around in this game many, many, many times. I've never been a damiologist or cared about the flow of water or anything, but in this game, it's so fun to control these little droplets and turn them into energy and do these contracts. So that's what you're doing. And it's all about positioning. Yeah, block this, block that. And now this move that I made in round 1 is now worthless. But you got to be aware of what you're leaving yourself susceptible to. And you're always looking at, Chris only has 2 of these brown pieces, so he can't build a dam right now. So I'm safe for a little bit. So probably get blocked earlier. That's going to force him. So it's a whole way of thinking and a puzzle that I really, really enjoy. It can be absolutely savage, but Barrage, my number 9. I absolutely love this game.
Man, such a good game. Adam and I just finished one. We were like 2 rounds in, and I'm just dropping the big elbow on Adam in this one. He's going down, and he ended up killing me. And he's like, there's so many different ways to manipulate the flow in this one and score some really big points. Oh, such a fun game.
He had the wrench tile, didn't he?
I had the wrench tile. That's true.
Tile.
Yeah. So, last week I talked about that wrench tile, and the guy I'm playing with called me out today. Like, I'm on Board Game Arena with him. He's like, "Oh, I heard you call me out. You think it's overpowered?" He's like, "I think there's at least 4 more tiles that are more overpowered than this." I'm like, we'll see how this game plays out. You're like 25 points up on us after the first round. So I don't know. Not looking so good so far. Interesting game. The first game of this, I remember really being frustrated by, because like the first move I took was to build a dam, or I don't know, a power plant or something next to some water that was in one of the basic dams, and immediately Chris builds above it and just essentially just completely wasted my first turn. So I was so unhappy until the first time I built the second piece off one of my rows on my player board and got that bonus for it, and then realized that I was going to get that in every income the rest of the turn. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is really cool. So this does such a good job of being a Euro game. It's a worker placement game with some real player interaction. And I'm sure there's other great games that do it, but I think Barrage is a fantastic way to do that.
Yeah, this might be one of the most high player interaction games out there that doesn't involve like actual combat. My number 9 is a game that was higher on my list last year. It was actually number 2 on my list last year, but it has dropped down a little bit. It's Terraforming Mars, designed by Jacob Frixelius and published by Frix Games. Don't read too much into that. It's still in the top 10. That's saying a lot. But I think Terraforming Mars is a game that has suffered a little bit from heaviness and length of play. I don't play it as much as I used to, just because it's harder to get it to the table. You really have to be prepared to sit, get down for an afternoon and really take some time to do it. And my wife and I both actually like this game. We enjoy it, and I'm able to get it played at home. And I've played it with folks that I play games with here in Portland. We all like the game, so we've played it at like our cons, but it's a little bit of a challenge to get it to the table. That said, this game is just an absolute delight to play. The combos with the cards and the engine building that comes with getting those projects out there, especially the ones that let you take the recurring or ongoing actions, and then building up those little tableaus of all the markers that let you get different benefits. All of that stuff is so exciting. And if you happen to have the upgraded pieces that Frix Games put out recently, not that recently, I guess, is a couple of years ago, with the upgraded pieces for the board, it's a delight to look at on the table as well with those 3D printed pieces. So many things to like about this game. I would probably say my favorite aspect of this game is the engine building. There's so much satisfying engine building, to the point where when you're sitting there looking at your tableau and you've got like 15, 20, 25 cards laid out, many of which are actually going to be doing something for you as you go along. It's such a good feeling, and it's so satisfying to see that engine get stronger and stronger and stronger, and seeing that ramp up. With the beginning, maybe you go through a few generations and almost nothing goes out on the map, and then later on in the game, all of a sudden things are flying out onto the map because you're going from doing these little tiny actions to doing these huge impactful actions. That is such a satisfying thing. And I'll be curious to see where this one goes next year on my list, because I could see it going either way. I could see getting a resurgence, or I could see it having trouble getting to the table and maybe dropping another point or two. So I think it could go either way. We'll just have to stay tuned and find out.
Chris, did you see that there's going to be a new expansion coming out called Prelude 2? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is though. Have you looked at what the actual what it's going to be about?
I'm looking at a little news blurb about it. It is 5 new corporations, 25 preludes, and 24 project cards. And then some of them are kind of expansion specific, but it looks like it's just a more stuff expansion to add some variety to the game.
I think that's cool. I'm not sure that with the hundreds of cards already in there. I mean, this is a game that's got a lot of doggone cards. I'm not sure it needed that, but new corporations are always fun. So I welcome that.
Yeah, I think it might be also a cash grab, the expansion, because they're putting it on Kickstarter, and this is probably a little tiny box of cards that'll cost them about 20 cents to produce. So I think somebody's looking for some funding, but that's something I'll look forward to.
We all need to make $1.
All right. My number 8 is Ark Nova. This was a new game for me on the list last year, and it was pretty high. I was really enthusiastic about this game. If you listen to our review I want to say way back in January of maybe 2022, I loved it. I loved my first play of it. I immediately pre-ordered the game, had it, had the physical production, and played it a decent amount, a few times. Taught it to some friends, played it solo, and then it got introduced. It came out on Board Game Arena And now I have a constant 1 or 2 games of this running all the time. So I've probably now played it like 30 or 40 times at least. It's still high on my list. I think it was like number 6 last year. So part of it is just, it's getting out frequently. So it's not quite as exciting. But, and it's got some little bit of flaws showing. I think the main thing being that it has a pretty heavy, the rich get richer piece going on here, where if you are early to kind of get an engine building, you're going to be ahead of the other players. It's hard to catch up. That said, I don't care. I'm having a great time playing this. I love taking every turn when it comes up. Fantastic game, Ark Nova. My favorite part about it is the action selection mechanism here. It's the 5 cards that are down at the bottom, and they're more powerful the longer they're sitting in your row. And when you get to take that top card and get all the benefits, especially when it's upgraded, that's super exciting. This one also has an upcoming expansion, which I'm really excited about. I forget what it's called, but it introduces some asymmetric player cards that you're going to draft at the start of the game. So everyone might have 1 or 2 cards that actually have slightly different actions or slightly more powerful actions. So that's really cool. And a bunch more project cards. I think it's like you get to build like marine buildings so that there's different types of cards that can go in those buildings, and ways that it's going to sweep the card market a lot more frequently and give you opportunities to kind of dig into the deck a little bit. So some of the challenges of potentially not finding the cards you want to put together your engine, it's going to give you more chances to do that. So really excited for that expansion, but in any case, still loving Ark Nova. Fantastic game for me.
Yeah, that expansion is Marine Worlds. And like you said, it looks like it adds more aquarium themed types of things. Looks pretty neat.
Chris, have you mentioned this game in previous weeks?
I have not. Don't read anything into anything, but no, I haven't.
Okay. My number 8 game is another Eric Lang game. It's an area control game that is new to me this year. This is Rising Sun.
Oh, I was wondering if I thought this would show up here. I was not expecting it to show up above Blood Rage, though. That's amazing.
Yeah, you guys played this one on the podcast. I wasn't there for that. And you played it in Portland, you played it somewhere, and you guys all said that I bet Adam would love this game. And you guys are totally correct. It did just edge out Blood Rage, like you were saying, Tim. And I think a little bit of that is the novelty. It's new for me. I haven't played with it as much, so there's that excitement still there. The discovery phase is still there. The last play we had of this in Sedona was a great play for me. There's a little mixed reviews on that, but I had a lot of fun playing this. Mainly, it's because, well, there's so many things. It's because I like those tiles that are in your hand. You get to look at the first, I think, 3 or 4 of those to make a little bit of a decision about, well, you get to make the decision about what action to take that round. And then a tiny bit of information about the actions that are going to happen subsequently, or the potential actions that can happen after that as you pass those tiles to the next player. I think that's cool. I like the little tug of war up top for those little bonus area control that you're going
It's like temple actions or something like that.
The Shinto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're like worship actions.
I think that's cool. I think the whole honor track is cool. And then, of course, the way the combat resolves in numerical order, that is also a fun thing for me, because what happens in the 2nd or 3rd region is going to affect what happens in the 5th or 6th region. Just some magic here from Eric Lang. Once again, I haven't even mentioned the production or the big old monsters or any of the things that you can do, all this special little just flair that's thrown into this game that just adds some nice little touches for me. Absolutely love this. I love the bidding too of there's so much I could talk about with this game. It's just fantastic. Thank you guys for introducing this one to me. Rising Sun.
Hey Adam, try to do some precognostication. I don't know what the right word is. You said that maybe this one it's kind of got that glow of novelty to you right now. Mm-hmm. Look ahead 2 years. Where do you think it's going to be in relation to Blood Rage? Think it's still going to be ahead of it, or think Blood Rage is going to pick back up again?
I don't know. It's going to depend on how much it gets to the table and how much we play Blood Rage a lot on Board Game Arena. So we're starting to figure out all the little combos and this and that. Maybe if they add some expansion stuff on Board Game Arena where we get introduced to some new things going on. So I don't know. The way we play Board Game, especially the 3 of us, we keep doing the same things over and over, I feel like. So maybe I'll get bold one of these times and try to draft some new cards and try something different. But to prognosticate. To Nostradamus a little bit, I think these will all cluster and maybe flip-flop over the years back and forth, probably whichever one I play more recently or had more fun with on the last play. So all great games. Rising Sun and Blood Rage, both fantastic.
I think it's a good call out, is that we do tend to, even though I love Blood Rage, we tend to lean into the same strategies, different strategies between the three of us, but we tend to lean into the same strategies. And so Rising Sun does feel like there's more discovery to happen. And I think maybe to some extent the game has more discovery or more like dynamic decisions and opportunities to make during it. So I think it has that going for it. I'm interested to see how it continues to come here for me as well.
Well, Adam, thanks for taking the time to Nostradamus.
You're welcome.
So my number 8 game is one that we haven't heard anything about yet, and that is Ark Nova. Just kidding. Of course, we just heard about this. We just heard about this from Tim. It was also his number 8 game. It was my number 4 game last year, but it moved down to number 8. So I think there's a couple of very specific reasons why it dropped down a little bit for me. One is, probably the primary one, is the complexity of I don't know if it's upkeep, I'd call it in this game, but it's keeping track of everything that's supposed to happen. I can remember when we were playing in Long Beach, we were sitting there and every turn somebody would forget something that was supposed to happen because their tableau gave them a power, and then the end of the round or 2 rounds later, somebody like, oh crap, I was supposed to also get this benefit, and then we're trying to recreate what had happened. And that is a real danger in this game. There is a lot of stuff happening that kind of goes that way. It's also tends to feel a little bit samey after a little while. And you combine those two, and it caused a little bit of a drop for me. That said, at its core, it does a lot of things that I really like. It does some of that same kind of engine building and the same kind of the set collection and the same things I was talking about with Terraforming Mars, where you've got the powers based upon the indicators on the cards, the little tags. A lot of that, it does the same kinds of things as Terraforming Mars and does them very well. I think a reason that it hadn't dropped even more for me is because I've been playing it a lot more now that it is on Board Game Arena. And in Board Game Arena, you don't have to do any of that keeping track. It does all of that work for you. So it's very easy to like this game when someone else, when the robot is basically doing all of that upkeep for you. That I really like. So it really lets me focus on the core pieces of the game that I really do enjoy without having to deal with all the downside of it. I think my favorite part of this game is the placement of the little polygons in your zoo. There's such a fun puzzle there. And it's funny because I find that of all the things in the game, this is one of the ones I'm worst at. Like I always end up placing things in areas where it's not ending up the most, it's not working as well for me as it should, or I place a piece and then realize, oh no, I was supposed to place that near a rock because my monkey needs rocks to climb on or something like that. I feel like that's one area that I want to keep improving on. And it's also one of the fun parts of the game. But then again, I love laying tiles. I love playing Feast for Odin and putting those little polyominoes down, filling those little spaces and trying to make something cool. And this game does that same thing. So I'm curious to see with this one again, also like some of the others, how it's going to do next year. Is it going to start feeling even more the same, or am I going to get this expansion and then that's going to add some new life to it? We shall see.
I think the only thing surprising about this being at number 8 on your list, Chris, is that somehow Adam is going to have it higher on his list. And I'm just so shocked by that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
I wouldn't bet on that.
All right. My number 7 is a game that I predict will be on all of our lists tonight. And that's Wonderland's War. This is a wonderful Alice in Wonderland themed area control game with a great little draft and bag building mechanisms, and just so many fun bonuses and fun little things that are happening in this game. Beautiful production, artwork by Manny Tremblay. And I've just had such a fun time every time I play, even when I'm doing terrible, even when luck doesn't let you possibly do anything useful in the game. You just keep failing. It doesn't matter. It's still fun. My favorite part about it is definitely the tea party, where you're walking around. You get to pick up 3 of these little cards, all that have cool bonuses, seem well balanced because some of them have some negative effects to weigh out the positive benefits. Everything about this game is fantastic. An interesting little note about this is last year, this was on all 3 of our lists, and we'd all played it like once or twice. It had literally just come out, just been delivered to backers. I think all 3 of us then decided to pre-order it. So I think we'd all had 1 or 2 plays of it. And it showed up when I did the Pub Meeple rating. It showed up at like number 4 for me. And I was like, this is dumb. I've only played this game twice. I'm going to drop it down to 10 because it's just got to be freshness that's sticking around. And we got several comments last year on like our YouTube, video of the episode saying like, oh, this is just Cult of the New. There's no way this game belongs in all of your top 10s. You guys are just talking about this hot new thing. Will it be in everyone's top 10s? I don't know, but it's definitely stuck around for me. It's a little higher than it was for me on my list last year, and I don't see this game going anywhere. It's always a fun time. And in fact, it's inspired me to do my first miniature painting of all time, and I started painting the minis for this, and it's easier and more fun than I thought it was going to be. So I can't wait to continue doing that. And if this project goes well, we'll move on to another game. But this game is going to look so awesome with these miniatures all in full color.
How's it going so far? You just have I saw the one you posted. How are they looking?
Yeah, so I haven't done anything since that session. I know it's not much, but I just have been so busy. But what I did is I decided to just start with the characters. And so I primed them all. And that was my first hurdle. I was like, okay, I don't know how to prime. I'm going to mess this all up. It was the easiest thing that's ever happened. And they turned out beautifully. So just you spray on this little layer of primer so that the paint sticks better. And so they all look a little darker color. So already they're starting to get a little texture. And then I started I was doing like a little painting party with a couple other content creators. And so we were just online one night and painting through these. And I didn't really know how it was going to go, but I bought a little painting set, painting kit, and it was going pretty well. And I started with white on one of the characters. So I ended up doing white on a few of the different characters, like Alice's eyes and her apron and like the teeth on the Jabberwock. And then I got to the queen and I was doing the white on her. And I was like, well, I'll just keep going with the other colors. So I finished her. But some of my other colors have little highlights now, or some of my other characters have little highlights. So even with the gray primer and, the darker gray primer and little highlights on the other minis, it just looks fun that they're starting to get some texture in there and not just like light gray blobs of plastic at this point. So even though I'm not going to do an amazing painting job here, it's going to look really neat when they're done, I think.
Here's my question for you on this one, Tim. Is this something that anybody could do? I mean, do you have to have any artistic ability to get down and start painting these, or no?
No, I don't think so. I mean, especially these minis are pretty, they're pretty large, kind of chibi minis with big surfaces on them. So all you have to do is have a little patience and a little attention to detail. And as long as you can, take your time with it, the lines are there. It's like paint by number. It's like coloring it's a coloring book basically on plastic. So yeah, you don't really have to have any artistic skill, just a little patience.
One of these days.
My number 7 game is Star Wars Rebellion. This is by Corey Konieczka and the crew over at Fantasy Flight Games. Last year, this was number 19 on my list. I don't know how it was so low because I had this game for, it must have been a clerical error. I got to talk to my staff. This game is fantastic. It's the ultimate game of hide and seek. If you don't know about this intellectual property, it's based on Star Wars. You are either the
What is that?
Yeah, you're either the Empire or the Rebellion. If you're the Empire, you're the hunters, you're the seekers, and you're trying to find the Rebellion, who are the hiders. You pick up secret base at the beginning of the game, and you stash it over here in the corner. And there's so much tension. I think the tension in this game is my favorite part of it, because you could be the Rebellion, and boom, a Death Star pops up in the system right next to your base. Are they going to come in and blow your base to smithereens? Are you going to be able to get some ships and hyper jump out of there before they find you? Well, who knows? I absolutely love this game. I love Star Wars, the theme. I watched it growing up as a kid. I have some nice upgrade stuff for this, some acrylic casing for the characters, so they're nice and heavy as they're putting them out there. Is this game an area control game? I don't really think so. It's like, that's why I said sort of. So this is like my 4.5 area control. You're sort of putting ships on planets, and there's going to be these long drawn out combats that aren't really that fun. Not the core funness of the game for me. But if you want some combat, it's here. Lots of dice chucking and card playing for that. That's my least favorite part, I think. Favorite part, probably the production. Although that can get annoying too. That's a long draw. You got to check every system and see what ships and what kind of thing you're going to make. But that's everything about this game takes a long time. But if you are not in a rush and you're just hanging out with your dad, like I like to do on a lazy summer Sunday afternoon, and you want to play some Star Wars and talk trash with each other, this game is absolutely perfect for that. Tense, fun card play, sneaky stuff happening here. Star Wars Rebellion, my number 7 game of all time ever.
Such a good game. I actually have a copy of this one that Tim gave to me some time ago. And it's funny, it didn't make my list probably because I've only played it a couple of times, and it's not even really on my radar, which it probably deserves to be, because it's such a fun game. And all the things you said are absolutely true. That said, it's also a pretty big, heavy game for a 2-player game, and that probably makes it tough to get to the table for me. But I'm glad that you're able to do that with your dad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my number 7 game is one of the few that's new to my list in the top 10, and that is Teotihuacan, City of Gods, designed by Danielle Tascini and published by Board and Dice. I'm also excited on this one because I've got the super upgraded Master Edition coming that's going to have solid gold plates for the tiles. Just kidding, it doesn't actually have that, but it's sure going to feel like that when I get this game. Now, this game is really cool. It's one that I was kind of mixed feelings on when we did our review of this a little while back, and it has grown on me exponentially since. You move around this rondel and you're moving your dice, and the power of your dice, every time you move it, you get to upgrade the dice to the next level up. And then each level of dice gives you a different benefit at each station. So the power of the dice is the power of the action. And there's all different kinds of things. You can get resources. You can move up temple tracks. You can get technologies. You can build parts of the temple. All of these things are super fun. But I think the thing that is most exciting to me about this is that there are those occasions when you can pull together these huge turns. For example, we played a game when we were in Sedona, and I was able to do something like this. And then just recently, somebody online did this to me in a game, and it felt a lot better when I was the one doing it. But you get 3 dice on one spot, and if they're all 4s or 5s, then you get these huge actions, like you get 5 different of a resource, and you also get to move up 2 tracks, and then each of those tracks lets you do something. And then it just, it's this combo that happens that feels so good, and it doesn't happen all the time. It's not like you're doing it every game, and so it feels like something special, and it's so rewarding and so satisfying. It makes this game, it makes all the accountancy worth it. So I love this game. I think this one's going to keep moving up. And again, funny because I wasn't sure about it when I first tried it, but now I'm all in. And I think especially once I get the big production, I'm going to be loving this game even more.
Chris is all in on T games in his top 10 this week. I can't wait to see where Tyledum falls. But if it's not on the list, then all I know is that Chris has to at least get to a second play on it before he reviews it properly, because both Teotihuacan and Tzolk'in, you were kind of meh on a first game, and now they're both in your top 10.
Well, I think I need to get a first game of Tyledum to judge it.
That's right. Well, let's start there. Sounds good. All right, my number 6, Chris already mentioned, it is Terraforming Mars. Should be no surprise to be on my list because I think it's been there the last 2 years. It was an early game that Chris and I started playing together. In fact, when he got into the hobby and started to get engaged, I was like, Chris, buy this game. I want to play this game. And have had a lot of fun plays, mostly with Chris on it, but lots on... a lot, all over the place. This game is everywhere. There's a great digital app for it. In fact, I even played it a couple times recently on a flight. Fun to revisit. I personally think it needs more content. I know there's lots of expansions of varying success, but I would love just some more base cards that you throw in, even just playing the base game with Prelude, and for some more variety. I taught this to some new friends recently, had a great 3-player game of it, and I love it. But I do think it's starting to feel a little stale. So I expect Terraforming Mars is going to start to drop down the list for me a little bit because I've just played it a lot, and it's not doing things that are so unique anymore, where some other games are bringing some new freshness in, and it still suffers from the old kind of wonky production from way back in 2016 when it should have had a much better production. I talked this to my new friends, and they're like, oh, we can see this is a much older game than the ones you've been teaching us, and it was probably the same age as several other games we've been playing. So it does feel, it's always felt outdated, and the gameplay made up for it. But I think, games are moving on a little bit. So this will probably drop, but still love it. Terraforming Mars, my number 6. My favorite thing about it, it's interesting economy here where every card has very different effects, but I think they're very well balanced based on the cost of them. So it's pretty neat to feel like you're doing that draft, and no matter what card you pick, if it works with your strategy, it's going to be a value for you no matter how expensive it is. Ark Nova, even though those have some conditions and stuff and costs, or like Tapestry, these games all have a variety in cards, but Terraforming Mars always feels like the cards are balanced. That economy makes sense. And so you're not gonna drop a bomb early. It's gonna cost you a lot more. You're gonna have to build up to it, and I think it works great. I think that's why it's been so successful. The other thing I want to call out though too, everything you need to know is written on the cards. You don't have to rely on iconography at all here, and I think that has been a huge success for this game. Not that other games don't do it, but there's a lot of games that miss on this front. I think there are other games that could have been just as successful if they had text on them instead of just iconography.
All right, my number 6 is the third Eric Lang game in the so-called Eric Lang trilogy. This is Ankh, Gods of Egypt. This was number 11 on my list last year. I've gotten to play this one a few more times this year with my dad and played it with you guys in Long Beach. What makes this one different than the other Eric Lang games? Well, like in Wonderland's War, you guys talked about, there's this little bit of forging aspect where you get to decide which powers your god is going to have as the game goes on, or which, powers your faction is going to have as the game goes on. So like that's pretty neat. You also have the hex map here, the hex grid, which you don't have in Rising Sun or Blood Rage. So movement and positioning matters a little bit too. I also like the action selection. It's a little bit unique here. And then you have dividing up the chunks of land as you go on. So at first there's maybe 5 regions where there's going to be combats, and then it divides into 6, and now there's going to be 7. So there's this emergent gameplay built in that's very nice as well. The board gets crowded as the game goes on. So it's going to matter where you put people and where you build the buildings, because those spaces are going to get taken up. Space becomes a limited resource here. And then you have the card play that's also fantastic. So during the combat, this is kind of like a Kemet or Kemet Blood and Sand aspect of the game, where you have everybody has the same set of cards, but now you're doing this little cat and mouse. Oh, I'm going to play this card, and that'll give me bonus for all the guys I have in the desert. Or I'm going to play this card, the flood card. That'll give me bonus for all the guys I have in the green part. So some clever stuff, a lot of stuff going on here. And you have the merge thing too, that you don't have to worry about that at 2 players, which this game is fantastic at 2 players. But it makes it interesting at higher player counts too, 3 or 4 players. We had the game where Chris and Steve merged into a mega god, and they came from last place to take down Tim and I and win the whole game. So that was kind of neat to see that actually happen. Also at any player count, you have all these different scenarios, different ways to start up the map and putting these cities here and this thing there and this thing there. I've only played the base scenario. That's been fantastic because you have like 30 different gods you can choose from, and every time you play, it's going to be something different. So years and years and years and years of gameplay left in this game. I've only done the basic one, and there's still more years to play of that one. That's Ankh, Gods of Egypt, my number 6 game. Another area control game. These guys are just like laughing at me, especially Tim, but they're great.
Adam, I have to admit, I'm surprised that this one came in ahead of Rising Sun and Blood Rage. So all great games, but I'm surprised this one came in at the top.
Yeah, it's one I own, and I get to play it a lot. My dad enjoys it a lot too, so he almost took me down last time. He's only played it, a couple times less than I have. So we have a lot of fun playing this one, and it plays relatively quickly too, which is really, really nice. So really enjoying this one.
So Adam, you've never played any of the scenarios other than just the starting scenario?
Just the starting one, yep.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what else changes with it. It does, from what I've heard, it sounds like there's some interesting things that come out of those other scenarios, but I have no idea what direction they go in. So
I'll report back if I ever get to them. Yeah.
Yeah, if we get this out again, it'd be cool.
My number 6 game actually rose 1 space since last year's list. It was number 7, and now it's number 6, and that is Eclipse, Second Dawn for the Galaxy, designed by Tuoko Takokalio and published by Laudapelt.fi. This is a game that I feel like we have expended so many words on that there's almost no words left to be spent on it. We've said so many things. I will just say it is such a fun game. Every time we play it, I feel like I'm sitting down to a big epic space opera, and my heart starts thumping, and I start worrying about getting out there and exploring new planets, and then who's going to attack me, and how am I going to get my butt killed, and how bad is my dice rolling going to be. But it's all with this feeling of fun and excitement. And this game is probably the epitome of what 4X ought to be, which is why it's high on my list, and it's also overall rank of 21 on BGG. So I'm obviously not the only one who thinks that. It's been on some lists here, and our lists as well. So many good things. I would say my favorite part of this game is the technologies that you use to build out your ships. You can use them for other things too, but so much of it is building out your ships. Picking 1 or 2 ships that you're really going to pimp out and you're really going to make strong with the big engines and lots of missiles and all these things. And then you're usually going to have to pick other ships that you're not focused on quite as much. And so it's a really interesting decision set, and seeing that take place. And by the end, when you're going into those big final battles and you have these juggernaut ships, it's a pretty exciting thing. And then in that last round or two, when you go into the final combats at the end of the round, that is about as exciting as it gets. Usually ends up being very disappointing for somebody, but it's still extremely exciting.
Cool.
Well, you heard me talk about it a couple weeks ago. I can't complain at all about this pick. I think it's awesome. All right. Well, my number 5 dropped just a few spots for me this year. It's Tapestry, designed by Jamie Stegmaier and published by Stonemaier Games. I think it was my number 2 on my list last year. Still an absolutely fun game. I get a lot of plays of it in. Last year, I said I think it rose up to number 2 for me because of the expansions and all the variety they added. And I'm going to take that back a little bit because the expansions are awesome. And if I'm going to sit down with Chris or with Steve and just play a 2-player head-to-head game, that's the way I want to play them, with everything added in there. But they do add time, they add complexity, they add overhead. And so now, my favorite way to play this sometimes is just let's bust out the base game. Yeah, cool, maybe throw out the different civilizations or the capital city mats, but you don't need to add in the arts and architecture track and stuff like that to just have a fun, streamlined game. So yeah, love Tapestry still. I have a great time with it. This is probably the most controversial pick that's on our list. So I'm going to call that out to you haters right now. Last year when we had our list, and Chris and I both had this pretty high up, we got some pretty negative feedback. Like, I liked your list up until this pick. Worst game I ever played. Listen, this game is going to be for somebody who does not mind if there's big swings and points, or that doesn't mind working towards like, hey, it looks like they got a good advantage. Let's see if I can come back from it. Or let me figure out this weird puzzle that was given to me. If you don't mind that stuff, this game is a blast. If you feel like every game has to be perfectly balanced, you're not going to have fun with this. If you feel like somebody's civilization's overpowered and I'm going to judge that on the first play, you're not going to have fun with this game. But for me, it's simple actions. It's always fun. Every action you take, you pay a little cost and you get a resource, you get a benefit for it. And it's fun putting together that puzzle. What tapestry cards do I have? What technology cards are out there in the market? What's going out on the, on the area control board? What's my civilization map coming together? Ooh, I'm going to plan for that tire factory. Oh, Chris just came in and stole it from me. Now I got to figure out a way to pivot for it. I think this game just has so much gameplay. I think I've played it 100 times at least, and I'm loving going back to it all the time. So Tapestry is my number 5. And by the way, they're releasing a final kind of expansion for it, and that is revised civilization pack, where they're going to basically send you all civilizations, slightly adapted for balance, where they did find that some of them were balanced. But what I found is even more interesting, and you can play this on Board Game Arena right now, is all the civilizations, the ones that were unbalanced, have not just been balanced, but they in many cases have been modified. Usually the ones that were less fun. And the new civilizations are so much fun to play with. I love when I get some of these ones that used to be kind of dreary, not so exciting, and now they feel just as fun as a lot of the new expansion civilizations do. So I think they did a great job of not only rebalancing them, as far as I can tell, but who cares, but just making some of the ones that weren't as fun more fun to play with. And so I think I like Tapestry just as much as I always have. Yeah, great game, Tapestry.
And amen to that about the recalibration of the civilizations, because that was to me the one big shortcoming of this game was there was a few of those civilizations that just completely lacked fun. I thought most of them were pretty fun,
yeah,
but there were a few that didn't. And every once in a while, I would draw 2 of the non-fun ones, and I'm like, can I just forfeit now, or can I just redraw my civilizations? And that is not the case anymore. A lot more fun in there now.
I suspect we'll be hearing about this one again too. But for now, my number 5 is Baseball Highlights 2045. This is the highest, almost pure deck builder on my list. It was number 12 last year, and this game is incredibly fun, especially if you like baseball. If you have any baseball background, it fits perfectly. I don't know. So I was trying to think about it. How is this game actually as thematic as it is? Because you're playing one card at a time, and one card might give you 3 hits and a home run, and might do a double play and have a wild pitch on it or some weird stuff on it. But each of these cards has some sort of offense, probably some sort of defense. It has a cost, and it has a revenue that it'll generate for you that you're going to use to draft more cards at the end of the little mini game. So there's a few ways to play this game. I get my most influential gaming partners, my dad, we play this one. We do a 3-game mini series. At the end of each of those games, we're just basically drafting and building our team and trying to customize it to counter each other out as the season goes on. So after this 3-game mini series, we have our deck built a little bit. Then we go into a World Series, this best out of 7 World Series. So after each of these games, same thing. You're using your, I think it's 12 or 13 cards. You're drafting new guys, sending guys down to the minor leagues, getting this better team as you go along and duel it out. each game. What a fun, somehow thematic game. I think my favorite part of this is when you have a tie game and you go to the extra innings. There's extra innings in here and you draw 3 and you play one simultaneously and they resolve, simultaneously. So that's a lot of nice tension there. Somehow highly thematic. Baseball highlights 2045. My number 5 game of all time ever.
This is a game I really want to try. I mean, I'm not a huge baseball person, but this game does look like a lot of fun, and I like the theme, and I like the deck building. Funny story, my wife was the team manager for my son's Little League team, and it just happens that our coach is also a gamer who I occasionally play with. And so we were in charge of getting the team gifts for the coaches. And so in addition to like the standard gift card that we got for all the coaches, I also got Coach Matt. Thanks, Coach Matt, for everything. If you're listening, got Coach Matt a copy of this game for his present and haven't had a chance to play it with him yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that.
I hope you like it. It's a blast, Chris.
I'm sure he will. All right. My number 5 game is another one that we've heard about this evening, and Adam was right. Barrage it is. That is another game that is new on my list this year. It was not on last year because we hadn't played it yet. But now that we had, this game has moved so quickly into the standard rotation. I've got my board game group here playing it, which surprised me tremendously that I found takers for this one in my current group, because usually this is a group that tends to like lighter Euro games. This is a Euro game, but it's not light. In fact, I was commenting earlier that another game we played that was 4.06 was the heaviest game we've ever played. Now, I'm not sure I actually believe that this is true, but BGG weights this one at 4.1. So according to BGG, this is probably the heaviest game we've ever played. Again, I don't really think that's the case. Lots of great mechanisms. Adam already talked about those. So what I'm going to talk about instead, just really quickly, is my favorite thing about the game, other than the mechanisms, which is the really cool theme and art. If you look at this box, it is menacing and dystopian. I'm not sure exactly why it's so dystopian, having hydroelectric power, but apparently it is. It's in 1930, and it's maybe set in the same sort of universe as Scythe is. But it's a really cool looking game. The backstory of the game is cool. The art it's not steampunk exactly. It's like Art Deco punk.
Art Deco-ish, yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to look at, but a great game to look at, a great game to play. I love it. I'm going to keep playing it. Adam's probably going to keep beating me at it, just like he does at Azul, but I can live with that. It's worth it.
Nice. All right. Well, we've all talked a lot about Barrage. So let's move on to my number 4, which Chris did mention last week, but this is Dune Imperium. This is designed by Paul Dennen, and it is fantastic. And I've played it a lot since last year when I had it ranked as my number 1 game of all time. I don't know why it's fallen a little bit for me, but I still have a lot of fun playing it. Every time the latest expansion adds some interesting variety. It's kind of like Tapestry, though. Sometimes you don't need that many complicated things going on. So sometimes it's fun to play a little lighter version of it, but I still love Dune Imperium. Can't wait for Dune Part 2 to come out this year and watch some more of that movie. I thought the first one was a lot of fun. My favorite thing about Dune Imperium is the combat. It's such an interesting little combat mechanism where you have to place workers to get troops out there and find ways to exploit it with a combination of the cards that you reveal, the cards that you have in your intrigue, your hand of intrigue cards, and great mind game that has sometimes big results, but it's a variety. Sometimes it's not the right thing to go out and even get into the combat at all, and you got to hold back. So a lot of great choices here that comes from a pretty straightforward worker placement game. And I love playing it all the time. Can't wait to play more of it this coming year. Maybe this will be the next game I paint the minis on if I ever get through Wonderland's War.
That is a great pick, Tim. My number 4 pick is Smartphone Inc. This was number 6 on my list last year. I've been talking about this one a lot lately because I've been playing it a lot lately because it's fantastic. One of the things I always say when I'm talking about this game is how smooth it flows, how streamlined it is. It runs in 5 rounds and there's like 8 phases each round. And the first thing you're doing is you're taking your 2 tablets, planning tablets, whatever they are, and you're putting them together in this little way behind your secret screen that doesn't really matter that much, but it kind of matters. And then you do this big reveal. Oh, my price is $2 cheaper than yours, but you knew that was coming anyway. And then from there, it just kind of flows. Everything's a little bit on autopilot. The fun part about this game is, how am I going to research these techs? If I research this tech now, that'll help me later on this round. So I'm going to do that right now. Or if I get this tech over here, it's going to make all the other techs cheaper, and now I can get the dangler tech, and I can have 18 things hanging off my tablets. I can get 32 actions in rounds 4 and 5. It's going to be a rat. So a lot going on here, not to mention the network building that you're doing and the underpricing. So when you set your price in that early phase, then you're the first one to put your product out there to the market. You can block out everybody, but wait a minute, I can counter that because I can sell these 3 at $8 a pop. I don't even have to put them out on the map. I have some secret buyers that are going to buy this in the underworld or wherever you sell them to. So a lot going on here. Some good variability with the different texts you can put in there, and those the abilities that are going to let you do some mix up the game a little bit if you're getting bored of the same tile set out there. Try something new. I heart Smartphone Inc. That's my number 4 best game of all time ever.
I heart that choice, Adam.
Thank you.
Great choice. And like you said, it's almost weird just how smooth this game is. It's like I don't know how you make that magic happen, but they did. All right. My number 4 game is another one that we've heard about this evening, and it is Blood Rage by Eric Lang and published by Simon. Again, not a lot to say on this one that hasn't been said about 24 times. So much fun, lots of fun to look at. The minis are great. The production is great. But the number one thing in this game always has been and always will be for me, those awesome combat cards. I love throwing down the combat card and hoping that you read the situation right in that cat and mouse game, that you're the cat and you're not the mouse. That's so good. And I mean, needless to say, Eric Lang, his games, he thrives on putting out amazing combat mechanisms in his area control games. And this one is no exception. All of his combat mechanisms are great, especially in his trilogy games. And this one, it is the star of the show. I love it. I never get bored of it, even with just the base game, which I play a lot on BGA. I've never gotten bored of that one. And I just feel like I'm probably never going to.
Well, I'm going to jump right on that angry train because Blood Rage is my number 3 as well. Blood Rage is higher for me this year. I remember it must have been down at 6 or 7 last year. And I think it was like not even in my top 10 the year before that, because area control used to bug me a lot, but I've come to accept some of it. And Blood Rage is my favorite type. It never feels particularly mean. It just feels exciting. And yes, your plans are going to get ruined sometimes in this game, and that's okay. It's fun that there's a lot of different ways to win this game as well. Like Adam mentioned, we tend to fall into our own strategies, but they're very different strategies, and we all win the games at different times. I love going after quests and just locking those in and getting all the benefits from them, or winning with sacrificing my dragon, my sea serpent and to the dragon boats and stuff. If I can get those 2 cards past me, it doesn't seem to be happening as much anymore after I publicize that strategy. But yeah, there's a lot of fun ways to play this game, and it's always a blast. So Blood Rage, I think it deserves a better expansion than it's gotten so far.
Mm-hmm.
We played a couple of them, and even the monsters that you can add in aren't particularly special. I'd love to see a nice mix of different cards for each era that you would just shuffle different ones in and out. So you were seeing a different mix of cards every time you played a little bit more. Barring that, I think, this is actually the one game that's number 3 on my list, and I don't own it, and I'm going to pick this up. Like, it's on top of my wish list right now. And I wouldn't even buy any of the expansions. I just want the base game right as is, right out of the box. And I could play this game forever. It's fantastic. Blood Rage.
Great pick, Tim. This is one of my favorite games. My number 3, everybody else has talked about it, I think, is Wonderland's War by Tim Eisner, Ben Eisner, Ian Moss. I don't have much to add on other than that. It's my number 3, and it's another area control game, but I want to talk about those areas. They're a little more isolated. So there's variances, right, within these area control games. Here, there's these individual chunks. They're not really connected by any way. How are you going to travel between them? It's a little bit more difficult to do. There's some cards or some little actions that let you put different characters in different regions or move those around slightly a little bit. But once you've kind of picked your area, you're not going to shift people around other than gaining new people and being able to put those out there, or if you've lost them in previous rounds, and then you can redistribute them later. But a little bit different of an area control than a classic area control, like Risk. You're not moving your guys around the map. They're kind of stuck there. So that's all I'll say about Wonderland's War, other than it's freaking awesome and my number 3 game of all time.
Now, I don't think we've heard Chris talk about it yet, did we? Or did I miss it?
Oh, maybe we haven't heard Chris talk about it. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll find out. Speaking of finding out, we'll find out right now what my number 3 game is. And this is the game that was number 1 for me last year, and it is down to number 3. Not a big drop, but it is a little drop, and that is Tapestry, designed by Jamie Stegmaier and published by Stonemaier Games. Tim already talked about this one. This is another one that I don't feel the need to say a lot about because of all the words that we've spent on this one. The one thing I did want to mention is I was thinking after an episode or two ago where I was complaining about Beyond the Sun and my complaint that the first few moves always felt very much the same. And I was looking at Tapestry and thinking, it's basically the same thing here. Why does it not bother me in Tapestry, but it does bother me in Beyond the Sun? Because really, the tracks never change. The tracks are always the same. Now, you add in another track if you use arts and architecture, but if you don't, you're basically playing the same tracks every time. And so you're always choosing one of the first 4 moves, and then even the subsequent moves, you're choosing from the same list of activities. So why doesn't it bother me in Tapestry? And the honest truth is, I'm not 100% sure. So rather than try to justify it or explain it, because I'm sure someone will pick up on that who loves Beyond the Sun and say, man, you're crazy. Why in the world is this any different? And maybe it's because the actions are more exciting to me, that they feel more impactful, that there is something about the individual civilizations that create some kind of a different dynamic. But honestly, I'm just not 100% sure. I just know that I always get a thrill with this one, even though those moves do have the same trajectory every time. But I love this game. I think the only reason that it's moved down at all to me, because I do play this one on constant rotation. I love it, play it all the time. Even recruited some folks here in my game group to play it with me. But there's a couple of others that have taken up residence ahead of it because those give me thrills too. And the thrills are still here with Tapestry. There's just a couple others that are even a little more thrilling to me now, which we'll get to very soon here.
Just one little memory with Chris and playing Tapestry is when I bought this game, it was a pre-order, right? It's like everyone would say, hey, the new Jamie Stegmaier game, let's check this out. So I pre-ordered it and I got it and I read the rules. I said, this is an interesting game, but I don't know if it's going to be very fun. And Chris was the first person I played it with. So we sat down and played it together and I taught him the rules and we walked through it and he wasn't saying much about it. And we got to the end and he's like, I really like that game. And the next time we got together, it's like, I want to play Tapestry again. So that was really exciting for me. And maybe one of the reasons why we both enjoyed it is because we had a lot of great early memories with the game. Maybe nostalgia is part of it, but I'm still having fun. Chris and I we played a couple of great games of this just the last few weeks where him and I played 2-player games and they were very close scores, whether they were high scores or low scores, they were very close scores, very tight games. So yeah, Tapestry still remains fun and exciting for me, and glad to hear it's still fun and exciting for you as well, Chris.
For sure.
All right, my number 2 is actually the heaviest game you've ever played, Chris. It's rated at a 4.39. Let's see, it's rated as a 4.39 weight on Board Game Geek, and that is Gaia Project.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't see how that's heavier than the game we were playing earlier tonight, but I could see it. I think that part of that game just has a lot of rules overhead, but maybe not complexity and decisions. Gaia Project does have a decent amount of complexity, yet it doesn't feel like it to me anymore. I guess I've played it enough where it feels easy to get into. And the thing about Gaia Project is it always feels like an exploration, even though we've played this game dozens of times. There's 16 different factions to play. So even if you play this game 15 times, you still haven't played with every one of the factions. And that's amazing in a game right out of the base box. And each of the factions plays differently enough to really feel like a different puzzle you're playing. The setup of the board is a little bit different. So, so there are some things that are the same. There's always the same text on the tech track that, tech tracks are the same, but they might be in a different order. The general actions you're doing are pretty similar between the factions, but there's just enough difference to make it feel like, this one's a little tricky. I got to work this one out and figure out if I can pull this one off. So I love Gaia Project. It's just risen for me. I want to keep playing it all the time. So there's theoretically, I guess there's an expansion that was in the works several years ago, and I haven't heard much about if it's going to be published soon. I think it'd be fun. I'm excited to see what kind of extra mechanisms come in and some more factions at this point. I think I've at least played all of them once or twice at this point. So I think I'm ready for an expansion. That'd be cool, but you definitely don't need it. There's a lot of gameplay in this game to start with.
Yeah, Tim, I remember when we first met early on, this was a game that we were both interested in playing, and we went on to, I think it was during the pandemic, we went on a tabletop simulator and explored it a little bit and started playing. I would even play it like couple-handed solo to get familiar with the rules, and we started getting into it, and we had such a fun time getting into it. And this is the one that's very high on both of our lists and probably rising on Chris's list too, I would imagine.
Yeah, in fact, this game was the first game that I bought during the pandemic because we all kind of got separated. And in fact, my wife and I, we had a vacation house at the time. So we're like, we can't see anybody local. So we'll go out to a vacation house. And I had this game delivered out there. And I remember setting it up like the first couple days that we were out there alone, set it up, learned it, played some solo games. So it has a very, specific time in my memory, but it was special. It was, but then, right after I learned it, I was like, Adam, come play with me on Tabletop Simulator. So it was one of our early games we learned to play together too.
Yeah. My number 2 pick of all time is Dune Imperium. We've heard about it from everybody else at this point. It is a absolutely fantastic game. The theme does it for me. The combat, like Tim talked about, is just a fun element of this game. It's kind of like an auction mechanism. How much am I going to dedicate to putting these troops in to try to win that combat? The race to 10 points, or what is it in the Epic edition, 12 points or 14 points? I don't know what it is. More points in the Epic one. Speaking of that, the Epic edition is fantastic. More Dune for longer? Yes, please. Throw in some expansions, and that's my favorite way to play this. All the expansions, everything. You got the green cube creepy cards that you have to buy now, or that you're able to buy. You've got the, I forget what the mechanism, melding or meshing, or you combining these 2 cards together. Some fun interactions going on with that expansion there. Fantastic game. Dune Imperium, can't get enough of it. I want to play it right now. It's my number 2 game.
So my number 2 game was a huge jump from last year for me. Last year, this game was number 18, and this year it's number 2. I would have said that it would be a surprise to you guys, except someone sort of made a comment about it just a moment ago. It's Gaia Project.
Nice. I can't believe that's number 2. That's crazy.
That's nuts.
And by the way, Gaia Project was designed by Jens Drogemüller and Helga Ostertag and published by Fjord Spiel. This game was a really slow burn for me. And it was one of the first games that we, probably in the first 3 or so months that we were doing the show, we played this game and reviewed it, and I didn't love it at that point. And then I kind of really didn't like it. And I think I kind of just stayed away from it. And I think the reason for that is because this game requires some investment. There are some games, at least for me, where I'm just so stymied by the rule set and so confused by the strategy that I'm just like, this isn't fun as I'm getting my butt kicked. Just to give you an idea what I'm talking about, I was looking at my log a minute ago, and I've got 21 logged plays of this game, and I have 1 logged victory in this game. So I have done a lot of losing, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that it just wasn't clicking with me. And how many times can you bang your head against a wall and still keep enjoying banging your head against a wall, right? And so this one, I think, what got me was that you guys were so into it, and so it felt like it was worth the investment to kind of learn it, to get a little bit better at it. And in the end, there was a payoff because I started to appreciate some of the nuances and some of the things that were happening in this game and the different abilities of the civilizations. And so I'm definitely not a hater for this one anymore. I'm a lover, except for the crazy civilization art, which I think is so goofy. It makes me want to yarf. But the game itself, I really dig. And so I think my favorite thing about the game is the huge variety in asymmetric civilization powers. I think that's the key to this one, because if you were just playing with the same basic powers, then this game would lose probably 75% of its depth, I think. But it's the fact that you have these different factions with these different abilities. It just opens up a world of opportunities. And I would love to see this one with a few more civilizations added in, because I think that is where a lot of the fun in this game comes from. So maybe they'll do it. Who knows? This
is amazing. And listeners, if you weren't around back at the beginning, I think almost none of you were, so it should be easy. Go back and listen to that Gaia Project episode. It must have been like episode 4 or 5. It was very early on. Chris was, like he said, was not a fan. So it's fun to hear that transition. Shocking to see it this high, Chris. I knew you were digging it a little bit more, but very cool to see it this high.
Yeah, when I mentioned that it was rising on your list, I thought you had talked about it already in one of the previous episodes. I didn't know it would be your number 2. That's a shocker.
Shocker. Yeah. All right, my number 1 shouldn't be a shock to anybody who knows me. Can you guys guess what my number 1 is? What have I missed so far?
That requires a better memory than I have.
You're not thinking, you don't know, because you guys don't even, this game isn't even on your radar. You don't think about it at all. It's Everdell.
Oh yeah.
Designed by James A. Wilson. And Everdell has been a huge hit for me from the first day I played it, and it just has continued to rise. I play this game all the time. like constantly. My wife and I play it all the time. And there is so much depth in this game with the expansions that exist out there. We almost always just play the base game, but I start to add in modules here and there, like the asymmetric player powers and things like this. This game is a wonderful, wonderful mix of resource management and tableau building. And with one big deck of cards that has probably about 40 different types of cards in there, you'd think it gets stale, you get tired, but the combination, the way they come at the timing of when you want to play something to set yourself up for getting a special event or for playing the right card at the right time, it still remains an exciting and fun puzzle. There's plenty of player interaction when you take that card that you know your opponent wants to grab. There's so many cool things about this tableau builder. And again, that doesn't even scratch the surface of how deep you can go with all the different expansions that are out here that I've barely even had a chance to play. Everdell, I just love it. I would love for you guys to play this again with me at some point, but it will never be when I have to travel because I have this massive, huge box for it. So this will never leave my house again. But at some point, if you're ever in town, maybe I can get you guys to play it with me again. It's fantastic. It's just like, it's one of these games, I talked about a few of them where it's just like, you just take turns around the table, right? You're just like, do one action. But the mix of actions you're doing here, oh, it's so good. It's just so good.
Adam, have you played this one?
Not recently. I played it the one time, once or twice with Tim, and I don't know if I played it in person. I know I've played it on TTS or Tabletopia.
Yeah, we reviewed it, and I think it was a day when Chris wasn't around, so Jen joined us for that review, and so I think just the one play with you, Adam.
Yeah, just the one, not enough to really know what's going on that much about it. So I know you love it, Tim, and I'd be happy to play this one more and more and more.
Yeah, me too. I've only played it once, and it was back 2 lifetimes ago when we all lived in Long Beach and we played it in person, but I'd be happy to try it again.
All right, well, my number one, we've heard about it from both of you guys already. You guys have any guesses? It's Eclipse, Second Dawn for the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. I should have known that. Duh.
So this was my number 4 last year, but why did it go up? We haven't played it. I think it's because we haven't played it recently, and I've just been longing for it. The further you get away from some of these games, the more you realize their brilliance, and that's what this game has for me going on with it. You have the shipbuilding, which Chris absolutely loves. You have, I forget what you were talking about, Tim. Some of your favorite parts about it was, what'd you say you liked?
I said the shipbuilding as well, but I like the exploration as well.
Yeah, you've got that going on. One of my favorite parts about it is just the elegance that the action selection happens and the economy of it. You slide this cube over. There's a little cost, or not a cube, it's a little disc. These beautiful discs. You slide it over, and there's a cost underneath that associated with having taken that action. If it's an explore action, you're going to colonize a section of space. You have to put another disc out there, and that's kind of the upkeep cost for maintaining those planets and getting the resources out of them to use for your civilization. So just the way that all that ties together. The game is beautiful. Talk about slick games. This is a 4X. So many things going on here that it's handled in such an elegant way. I'm going to say elegant because I think it applies here. You have different minis for all the different factions. You have little ship stands for the big ships, and you have your little interceptors flying around trying to do crazy stuff out there. I think this is board game perfection. I can't get enough of this. I love the dice rolls. I love that combat part at the end. There's all these little nuances of flying around. There's the pinning. There's the different texts. This is just everything I want in a board game. It's Eclipse, Second Dawn for the Galaxy. My number 1 game.
It is 4X perfection. If you like 4X games or want to get a 4X game and you have several $100s to spend, this is the one to do it with. So, Tim, you said you think you know what my number 1 game is, and you probably do. What's your guess?
It's got to be Wonderland's War.
Oh, yeah. Wonderland's War. You already said Blood Rage. Yeah, it's got to be Wonderland's War.
Yeah, it is Wonderland's War. Wonderland's War was number 5 for me last year, and it moved up to number 1 this year. It's funny because unlike Eclipse, which is so elegant and so perfect, a distillation of all the things that make 4X great, Wonderland's War is not that elegant, and it's this weird, quirky pastiche of area control and bag building and all these things, and it's as quirky as the theme. And the thing that gets me, the thing that is so exciting, it creates this feeling of pandemonium when the battles start happening. When you start drawing the tokens, these little chips out of the bag, I don't think I've had a game of this yet where people aren't standing around the table waiting to see what happens, because it's that exciting. any game that can bring that kind of excitement has got to be a big winner on my list. And this one always delivers every single time. I keep thinking this game is going to drop a little bit, and then I play it again, and I actually even enjoy it more. Here's the crazy thing, though. This is a game that I thought my wife in a million years would never want to play, but she agreed for Father's Day that she would try it for me because I really wanted to try it, and we did. And she was kind of like, you kind of grumbling about it a little bit. And then later on, she goes, I'd play that Wonderland game with you again. That was pretty good. It's so much fun. And you add in Manny Tremblay's awesome art. It's a delight to look at. So I think this one, if it can stay on that trajectory, then I see this one staying on my list for a long time. The only downside I will say about this game is that the rules overhead, it's maybe not so much the rules are that complicated. It's just not that intuitive. It takes a little bit of hand holding for the first time somebody plays. But once you can get past that, so much fun.
I want to add one thing about Wonderland's War. I don't think we've embellished it lately, is that push your luck element. It's the bag building. You've got the push your luck and that combat track. Are you going to stop on a forge, or are you going to stop at some odd number to satisfy some dumb mission that's in your hand? The push your luck makes this game so good and so tense. I know that's one thing you've been appreciating more and more and more, Chris. Me too. That makes board gaming so much fun, and it's done so perfectly here in Wonderland's War.
And why it works so well is because there are different like benefits you can get. So it's not always just about being the winner. You don't just I'm not in the lead, I better keep going. Sometimes it's just like, nope, if I can just get to that forward thing, I'm stopped, all good. I'm ready to go. And I love it sometimes where you can stop way back and then the other two people knock themselves out and you end up winning or taking a second place out of nowhere. Super fun. We also didn't talk about the fact that you get to wager on who's going to win when you're not in a battle, which is something that every combat game should have in it too.
Yeah.
Great pick, Chris. All right. Well, that will wrap up our top 10 games of all time.
I feel like now that we've finished, this is the mic drop at the end of the big list for all time. I feel like there should be a song. I don't have a song for you, unfortunately, but man, what a fun list. I'm glad we did this.
Final thoughts from you guys? Anything you'd like to mention?
I was really interested to see the mix of games that had gone up, that had gone down, and that were new. Just because it's interesting seeing how tastes change over time, that there are favorites that stay favorites. There are favorites that drop down. There are games that, for goodness sake, Gaia Project. I hated Gaia Project. I didn't like that game. And now it's number 2 on my list. It's crazy. Tastes change over time. And I think that's one of the nice things about our hobby is that there is something out there for everyone. And so you can change, you can evolve, and there's always going to be something out there for you because we have so many great options. We are truly living in the golden age of board games right now.
I want to emphasize that, or at least jump on bandwagon that statement, Chris, because it's fun to see kind of what is stabilizing, how my top 10 list is stable. Basically, it has sort of stabilized as compared from last year to this year. There's a couple new games that got in there, and those were ones that I suspected that I would like. So no big surprises really in my top 10s. It's nice to see how my tastes are developing and refining and what's staying in and what's going out. But yeah, Chris, you nailed it. The tastes are changing, but it's fun to capture that top 10 and see like, oh yeah, I really know exactly why I love each one of these games so much and what they do to my brain. It's just a fun feeling recapping all of these and talking about them. I get excited about it.
It does make you wonder how much like nostalgia and just familiarity kind of leads to just love of a game, because like if you go on Board Game Geek and you get into a chat with somebody that's been on there for 20 years and they're going to be like, no, there's nothing new came out this year that I'm interested in. The best games came out in 2003 or 2004, right? And it's like people tend to settle into what they liked at some point. So are we settling into some of these lists because they're familiar to us, because they're nostalgic, because the people that we play with like to play them as well? That's a good question. I don't know. But I also think that they're great games if we still want to keep going back to them, even though we play at least one new game every week, basically, right, for the show at minimum, sometimes more than that. And some of those make it onto these lists, but the top 10 for me, the only thing that moved up was Agricola, and I think it just knocked Clank down a little bit. And if you guys had liked Clank Catacombs more, it probably would have not even changed at all. So not a big change at the top for me. But I did want to mention that there are several games that, just like I said, I didn't put anything on my list that wasn't that I didn't play more than one time this year. And there are several more that I think if I can get some more plays, I'm going to love. And I think there's more games out there too. I mean, like some games that just shocked me. I'm looking at my list a little bit lower, but things like Paperback Adventures was in my top 20. Revive was in my top 20. Yokohama, which is an older game, but I played for the first time, was in my top 30. So, I think there are still going to be new games we're discovering all the time that are fun and exciting. Let's see if anything pushes the top 10 down next year.
I was going to ask if you guys have any that you suspect will break into your top 10 that aren't currently in there at the moment. You mentioned Revive. I think in Revive for Chris might go up. I don't know, Chris, what do you think about that?
I think Revive might go up. I'm looking at my list here.
Yeah, Revive for me is the one that I'm pretty sure will show up there if it doesn't feel stale after, like I get to play another 5-10 times or something like that. So if it stays exciting for me, I think that one's going to go up for me for sure. But some of the ones that I mentioned earlier, like Woodcraft, Tylidum, I only played once, Boone Lake, and those games, super fun time with them, super fun mechanisms. And I could definitely see more plays of those going to rise those up. Dungeon Pets, I thought would show up in my top 40 because I had a lot of fun with that game this year. So I could see that rising a little bit, but definitely not top 10.
Yeah, that game peaked the first time we played it, and then it went downhill from there. I think for me, the one that I actually think is going to make a big jump back into the top 10, I hope, is Batman Gotham City Chronicles when I finally get the delivery from Monolith with the solo mode.
What about John Company? You don't think we're going to get that out and that's going to rise to the top 10 quickly? No?
You convinced us not to. You anti-sold that one, Adam.
I did.
Well, here's the deal, right? Some of these games, they just seem too unapproachable to be fun. But we were playing Hegemony tonight, and that one shocked me by how much fun I'm having with it.
Yeah.
So is it going to be is the payoff worth the effort? I don't know, but now it makes me wonder, am I passing out on something like Oath just because it seems unapproachable that I shouldn't give it a try, or John Company or something like that? I don't want to do this too often. It was a lot of work to get into this game tonight, but there are probably some games that we just don't put the effort into. All right, cool. Well, that will wrap up our top 40 games of all time for this year, with the top 10 being this week. We will probably be back to a normal episode next week, but who knows? We still haven't figured out what we're going to do. So if you're new to the show, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're happy to have you. And if you're an old listener, welcome back. Thanks for sticking around for all this time. Loved having you all with us this year. So until next week, take care, everybody.
Good night, all.
Bye-bye.